Welcome to The Next Interview Show. Every week, Doland sits down with industry game changers, visionary founders, and powerhouse executives to uncover the raw truth behind what it really takes to lead. On this week's show,
innovation is that willingness to try. When people are innovating and there's autonomy involved, they have permission to try, and they're asking themselves, what if we tried X, right? We innovated, in the 60s, we innovated our way to the moon and back. We're now innovating our way to Mars. We're now innovating cures to cancer. So when we think about that, innovation with fear in place dies because people are afraid.
This episode is sponsored by the Leadership Mindset Mastermind, a 52-week experience that will transform your leadership and supercharge your career. For more information, check the podcast webpage or show notes.
Welcome to the Next Interview Show podcast. I'm Doland White, and as the announcer announced at the beginning of this, I'm the host of the podcast. Today's a little different. This is going to be a solo episode, and it's I guess, when we do podcasts, there's a self-celebration that occurs when you cross milestones. And I count the milestones in tens of episodes. So today is episode number 41. And I'm really happy to be talking to you today and still have the podcast coming out every week on Monday morning at 7:00 Pacific. When the podcast started, I retired April 1st of 2024. And when I retired, one of the things that had been in my mind for, several years was the opportunity to find a platform to help share my message. And my mission in life is to empower 1 million leaders. And you guys will see me all out there on LinkedIn as the empowerment guy. And that's in my messages. And empowerment's a big word, but it's not about what's in my head. It's really what's in the collective head of leadership. When we talk about, leadership and what it means to lead other people, it is, how do you help people become successful? We all have different meanings of success. When I work with clients, I talk about one of the things is that people, when you talk about success, we fundamentally all want the same thing, regardless of title or role or anything in any company. And we want a vacation, a car. We want a place to live. We want a great relationship. We want people to love us, people that we love. The fundamentals of life on who we all are as humans is pretty consistent and not that hard to figure out, and then figure out what people consider their worthy ideal. What is it that they're measuring their success by and that they're working towards? So my podcast was originally created with that intention in mind. How do I bring other leaders to the table to help share their stories, to share their lessons, and contribute the bit that I know through my experience of all the years that I have done stuff in different titles, CEO, and all the blah, blah, blah things in my career. So today I'm going to go back and I'm going to visit just some of the topics from my guests that have been here. And I've got 9 of them here on my list that I've just kind of picked, not randomly and not haphazardly. So I'm going to use this crib sheet as a method to talk to, but I want to share some things with you that you may want to think about without having to go back to every episode and go find it and look these people up, but just things to pay attention to. And I think these are mic drop moments, as you can tell by the keyboard sitting in my corner there. I'm also a musician. So there are those moments when you go, wow, damn, that was good. And you got a good point. So the first guest that I want to share with you about is a guest that was on the podcast. His name is Tom Krause. And Tom really leaned in on the topic of trust and autonomy. And what Tom shared was that when he stopped micromanaging and started truly trusting his team, performance soared. Less sword went up, right? And then less second guessing and more ownership. And one of the things that came out of that, there's an equation that I talk about around velocity, right? That a company can only progress at the speed at which it's willing to accept change. And change is part of it, right? By the time we get off of this podcast today, something will have changed somewhere in your life or in business. Things will change. It's inevitable. So I love Tom's conversation in this, as you go back, and I would suggest you listen to all these episodes. But one of the things, when Tom's talking about less second guessing and trusting his team, and that trust is that reciprocal thing, right? We have to trust ourselves, learn as a leader to trust us. By learning to trust ourselves, we can then begin to trust another individual and develop that relationship. And that individual can learn to trust themselves. And then through their ability to trust themselves, can trust us. The four pieces of trust at a really high, quick level. So I love the fact that he brought that trust, in this case, reduces friction. And it multiplied his velocity and multiplied his outcome by building a trusted team. So as a leader, think about that. Why, when people talk to you about, the importance of building trust in your organization, why are you doing that? Well, you're doing that because you want to increase velocity. You want people to be willing to try. And they do that because they're trusted. The next guy I want to give a plug to is my friend Jim Huling. These guys are all friends, by the way, now after all the podcast episodes. I consider them friends. Jim Huling. And Jim explained that clarity around a worthy ideal, we'll come back to that, fuels more motivation and alignment. People don't follow goals, they follow meaning. And the lesson from that is that worthy ideal. And a lot of times when I'm talking about leadership, we talk about in pursuit of a worthy ideal. And the worthy ideal is not 10% increase in revenue, more margin, more profit. That means nothing to the guy driving the forklift in the warehouse other than the fact that he or she gets to keep their job, right? That individual. That worthy ideal is what matters to that person in alignment with what matters to the business. So I love that. And it really left a takeaway for me, which was that purpose-driven leadership energizes teams. When you have purpose-driven leadership, you energize your team and you create that framework that trust can live in, right? So that's Jim. The next one is this guy named Blaine Bartlett. And I have a, warm spot in my heart for Blaine. We've known each other for many years. We're partnered with a mastermind and other kinds of things. But regardless of all of that, Blaine says, when fear runs the show, innovation shuts down. And Blaine challenged us to remove fear from the system to unlock creativity. And I love that thought. I think we're all to a degree. Every person suffers from fear in one state or another, right? We fear the future. We can't fear what's happening in this moment. Well, unless it's fight or flight, that's a different thing. But when we're fearing the future, right? That when fear runs the show, innovation shuts down. And innovation is that willingness to try. When people are innovating and there's autonomy involved, they have permission to try, and they're asking themselves, what if we tried X, right? We innovated, in the 60s, we innovated our way to the moon and back. We're now innovating our way to Mars. We're now innovating cures to cancer. So when we think about that, innovation with fear in place dies because people are afraid. There's a punitive component that comes to that. And the takeaway that I wrote down for myself was empowerment thrives in a psychologically safe, and I run podcasts, hard to talk, psychologically safe environment. Say it again. Empowerment, permission to try, thrives in a psychologically safe environment. Then there's this guy, Eric Bond. And Eric, again, when we were talking, Eric broke down a couple of thoughts I thought that were really interesting to share with you today. That every breakthrough his company achieved came from investing in people, not processes. Processes are important. But one of the things that I love his statement from the takeaway that I wrote down from re-listening to Eric was, you grow your business by growing your leaders. It is truly focusing in on people and the power of the people in your organization. So I love that from Eric. Every breakthrough in his company was achieved, came after investing in people, not investing in the process. It's an interesting concept, right? In my career, there's been times where I've invested in people and there was no way in hell they were going to fit in the process because it was the wrong person to start with. And the fact that it was the wrong person in the apple barrel broke everybody else around it. So not only did it shatter the process, but it shattered the relationships and cooperation on the teams. And that was ugly. I can tell you that. It took a while to learn that lesson. There's this guy, Bill Holzendorf. Bill had a lesson for us, and Bill reminded us that rules don't build systems. Relationships do. Connections build trust, and trust builds commitment. What a great concept. This is something that he lives into. I love what Bill does when he's building teams and the things that he does with the global organization that he's involved with. Connection builds trust. When we're connected to each other, when we've created that accountability, and accountability is not Trello boards and accounting and Excel spreadsheets and time management and blah, blah, blah. Accountability is our willingness to co-own outcomes with each other, to co-own for the sake of what with each other. We are accountable and we're willing to be communicative and transparent. We create those relationships, and the connection builds trust, and trust builds commitment. Then there was an interview with a gentleman named Neil Rogers. And Neil kind of flipped the head a little bit on accountability. It was fun listening to Neil again. And one of the things that he talked about is ownership is what people want when the mission is clear. And empowerment and accountability aren't opposites. They're partners. And I love that statement, because empowerment, right, that willingness to give people permission to try, and then giving them the resources to do it, to really truly empowering them, and accountability, that mutual commitment that we make to each other, are so closely partnered that they're almost inseparable. They're not cousins, they're brothers and sisters. They're in the same family. Well, I love that note from Neil on empowerment, and specifically around that, about how close that is, with empowerment and accountability being so close. Then John Formica, boy, early in the podcast, John, I was blessed to have John come on, and I met John a little over almost a year ago now. And John came on, and John, in his podcast, challenged leaders to stop focusing on checklists and start creating moments that matter. And if you stop and think about that for a moment, stop focusing on checklists and start creating moments that matter. That great leadership is transformational, not transactional. And I think leaders can fall into this trap where it is the transactions, the things that I put in place as a leader to go do. So it becomes a transaction. I'm going to have a meeting, and we're going to have a one-on-one, and check it. It's off my box. I had my one-on-one, and by God, we've got it done. And I love that sentence around leadership is transformational, not transactional. So think about it in that context as you're looking forward. One of the guests, Bryce Henson. So Bryce, his biggest breakthrough came through when he stopped pretending to have all the answers and started learning like crazy. And one of one of his quotes was, "Vulnerability fuels growth." And when you're truly vulnerable and you have taken time to figure out who you are and admit the things that you don't know, to be vulnerable, you will go learn. You will ask questions. And when you ask those questions and you're transparent with your teams through your communication process, your team in turn, you'll be amazed at how much your team will support you. Amazed is a big word, right? But it'll reveal things, right? People will only rise to the level of expectations you set for them. So when Bryce is talking about that, he stopped pretending to have all the answers. So he let go of we'll call one of the 5 laws, right? I have to be I'm invulnerable. I know everything, and therefore you guys just do what I say to go do. So when he let go of that, and he began creating moments that matter, the way he did that was he became vulnerable. And by vulnerable was that admission that I don't know it all. I need to work with people who can help me know better. In the meantime, I need to develop trust and let them do their thing. And last but not least, I want to talk about Ken Gonzalez, my friend Ken Gunn. And one of the things that Ken and I had a conversation about that was really, really good was Ken reminded me that without clear outcomes, even the best ideas fall flat. Now, Ken's got a long consulting background in Gartner, and I've known him for many, many years. And we were in the software industry together for quite a period of time. And one of the things that he left as a statement was that clarity breeds tactics, always. Clarity helps you understand what to do. Clarity also breeds confidence. And when you have clarity and you understand the goal and you understand where you're working for, then with that clarity in place, you can accomplish anything, literally accomplish anything. So Ken, it was a great Ken's reminder that without clear outcomes, even the best ideas fall flat. And that clarity before tactics, always. Clarity before tactics, always. So that's 9 guests. There was a note in here of one of the guests was this guy Doland, and he had some wise things to say in one of those podcasts that I wrote down. But this isn't about me. This is about you as a leader listening to the podcast. So, hey, I'm going to encourage you to do a couple of things. These folks that I've talked about, go back and listen to their podcasts. The podcasts are 30, 40 minutes. And if you put it on 1.2 or 1.5 play, you can hear all of these things in far less than the actual duration of the podcast. But go back and check them out. And since this is episode 41, it's my pleasure and my honor to bring you these guests. And I hope that I'm asking compelling questions that make them think and ask things perhaps that they've not thought about yet. And I'll share more with you at episode 51. I'll give you 9 others. A couple of other announcements is very soon. Matter of fact, at the time that this episode airs from now on, if you want to know more about the podcast, you can go to www.thenextinterview.com. So thenextinterview.com is going to be live, and it'll have all of the episodes and all of the links and some resources that I'll be adding over time that based on leadership that will help you as a leader. I'm Doland White. I'm the host. Share this episode with 2 leaders that you know who need help. Give it a no, like, share, or follow, depending upon the platform that you're on. Thank you for being a listener. Thank you for supporting me through the podcast process. Thank you to the PR agencies who send me amazing people because they trust the questions that I'm asking. And it's an honor to be here with you. And I'll see you on the next interview show. Thanks.
Thanks for tuning in to the Next Interview Show. If today's conversation gave you something to think about or something to act on, follow the show. And share this episode with a leader you know who's ready to step up, because empowered leadership isn't a solo sport.